What's going on, everybody? On today's episode of the Utah High School Hoops podcast, I've got my former Twitter friend, and now we've spent a little bit of time chatting. My in-person, or I guess over video friend, Jonathan Tavernari on. We're going to go through Jonathan's playing career, just chop it up a little bit about that. How did he get to Utah? Why is he still staying here in Utah? And then just have some words of wisdom from someone who has played basketball at the highest level. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. This is the Utah High School Hoops podcast, your source for sometimes informative, but always entertaining coverage of the Utah High School Hoops scene. With your host, Adam Heek. All right. Well, like I said, we've got JT in the building. Is that an appropriate phrase? JT in the building?
All right, let's go. I'm in range as soon as I step out the bus. So in the building, I'm even more deadly. So we're good.
Is that how it is?
Yes.
All right. Well, I didn't reach out because I was like, man, I grew up in Utah. I did not grow up in Utah. I didn't grow up watching, BYU basketball. Obviously, right. I know, a few of the guys who've come through. But I just reached out because I really appreciate how you interact with people on Twitter or X or Twix or whatever we're calling it. And then I saw you were connected up with Tony and Sanyan, and I was like, man, I got to chat with this guy. And so I was stoked that you said yes and you're willing to come on. So for people like me who are not familiar outside of a Twitter profile, why don't you do a quick introduction on who you are, and we'll get chatting away from there.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me, Adam. And my name is Jonathan Tavernari. I am from São Paulo, Brazil. And I grew up playing basketball. My mom is a basketball coach. Not to oversell it, but my mom she's the director of the Brazilian national team. So for boys 18 and under, everything that happens in Brazil with basketball runs through my mom, and she is like the Don Corleone of Brazilian basketball.
Is Pat Summitt the American Mrs. Tavernari?
Yeah, Funny enough, my mom and Pat actually played against each other, and so, but yeah, she's been coaching for about 45 years. She has won, almost 4,100 games in her career. She coaches multiple levels. She coached multiple ages, right? So in Brazil, it's not like here in the U.S. where you have school and AAU. It's pretty much just club basketball. And so she coaches multiple ages, multiple seasons coaching multiple ages. And so she's won almost 4,100 games, over 115 championships. The Coach of the Year award is named after her. It is the Thelma Tavernari Coach of the Year award, and she has won it the last 4 years, and she's pretty bothered by it because she says, usually people do this when you're dead or about to die, and I'm neither, and so it's kind of funny that she wins her own award.
Bro, it sounds like I had the wrong Tavernari on.
I think I've posted a couple of times. She's actually worked with Coach K before. Coach K was aware. It was explained to Mike Krzyzewski who she was, and he actually hosted her at Duke a few times for a couple of weeks to see practice and coaching, that type of stuff, and so. Pretty unique, so I grew up around the game, and I, played basketball my whole life. Always had a dream to come to the US and play here. I watched the movie Blue Chips with Shaq
Penny, Steve Novak.
That's right. And my goodness, and Nick Nolte. And then I also watched the movie He Got Game, and I was like, I need to go to the U.S. and play basketball. At that time, it was getting pretty pretty common for South Americans to go to Europe and play and kind of develop there. Kind of like what the Luka Doncic process, the Manu Ginobili type of thing. But I never wanted to go to Europe. I always wanted to go to the US. And I learned English and I was able to have different opportunities to come to the US. Um, and I ended up coming here when I was 16, just before I turned 17th. And my junior year of high school, I went to Timview High School here in Utah.
All right.
And it was a bit of a mixed emotions type of thing, mixed experience, because the more I talk, the less you hear my accent and you start paying attention to what I say. I say funny things and that type of thing, but back then I did, but my accent was much thicker, and so it was kind of an interesting mixed situation for me, because a lot of people used to make fun of me and pickle me and teenage stuff, but just the regular teenager stuff. And it was kind of weird. It was a first experience away from home, away from my mom and dad. It was one of the reasons why I decided to convert to the Mormon church, and kind of grew close to my spiritual side. But it was kind of up and down. Basketball wise, it was solid. I made all state. I played for a really good team. We made to the quarterfinals of the state tournament. And but then my senior year I transferred. My senior year I was supposed to go to Judge Memorial, because I needed to go to a private school because of federal laws. And I was supposed to go to Judge, but opportunity came for me to go to Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas,
Yep.
and I jumped on it. They weren't one of the top teams in the country the year before, so my junior year, and then went to Gorman, and everything was kind of like it went like this at Gorman, and they needed somebody that did the things that I did. Um,
Which is what shoot you said when you step in the building, you're
yeah,
just
yeah, I know, and so I was a
skills.
shooter, and I was a scorer, and they needed somebody to do that, and so my senior year was incredible. I led the state of Nevada in points and rebounds. I was a McDonald's All American nominee, and I was a Pangos All American, and had offers from a lot of places. Had offers from the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, Pac-10, but ended up choosing BYU. BYU always had a special place in my heart. It was the very first school that recruited me, back when universities used to send you the package, with their almanac, right? And I just love the place. A lot of connections here to Utah. You remember Rafael Arujo?
Oh
And,
yeah, drafted by was he the eighth pick to
by
the
the
Raptors?
Raptors.
I think
That's right.
he was drafted pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I knew him from Brazil, and we were close, and I consider him almost family to me. And had a lot of experiences also with Louis Lemus, if you remember, the point guard from BYU.
No.
And so I had a lot of connections to BYU, and it just decided to make my choice to play college basketball here. And you know, and so it's interesting as I come across different high school prospects here from Utah. As I see them play, I try to compare and say, how would that team fare against my senior year team? My senior year team, we were really good. DeMarco Murray, the running back from the Eagles, the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's
Um, yeah, he was one of my high school classmates, and we played together. And we ended up actually being ranked 17th in the country that year. And
jeez.
so yeah, and so like I said, I was a late bloomer and I was doing really good, but we had a squad. And so I look at teams like Corner Canyon, and obviously we all know about Brody. I actually think there are a lot of similarities between my game and Brody's. I've talked to his mom about it, and the way that he catches and shoots. I was never that athletic, right? Also, he's 6'8". He's a legit 6'8". So but
Well, how
the
tall
way
are you? I don't know.
I'm a 6'6", and so
You're only 6'6". Come on. I'm
yeah,
just kidding.
and so
That's like regular person tall, but like
yeah,
basketball
yeah,
on the
yeah,
taller side, but not huge, obviously.
yeah.
Yeah,
And Brody's ability to catch and shoot and have a really high jump shot, reminds me a lot of me. And so a little bit sad that he didn't choose BYU. I think that it would have been perfect for him, but I also understand why he chose USC. And I'm really cheering for him to do amazing while he's over there.
I love it.
Um, and yeah, and so it's after that I went to BYU and I played 4 years there. Had a pretty successful 4 years at BYU.
What years? What? So I'm trying to pick. I'm trying to figure out the years here. So what years were you at BYU?
Yeah, I was at BYU from 2006 to 2010.
Okay. So that would have been because I was at CSU in '02, so that would have obviously been a
Yeah.
little bit after me.
Did you ended up playing with Jason Smith?
So Jason was, I think he was a freshman. I didn't play on the CSU team. I
Sure.
was my senior year. I got to be around. Like Buzz Williams was an assistant coach
Right.
there. Dale Layer was there. I think Jason was a freshman my last year at Colorado State.
Gotcha.
He's there's very few kids from the state of Colorado, which is where I'm from, who end up making it to the NBA. So we kind of all know who the guys are, like Reggie Jackson. I went to the same high school as Pat Garrity, which is he's an older guy. He went to Notre Dame. Um, Jason Smith obviously grew up there. I'm trying to think of who else. Maybe it's similar to Utah, right? Like Frank Jackson, Sam Merrill's just absolutely killing it right now. There's not a lot of kids who grow up in Utah and then end up making the league. There's a lot of kids who come to Utah to play, especially now, um, with like Utah Prep and Wasatch and some of these schools. But yeah, anyway, so you're at BYU from '06 to 2010. Um, and then I know you mentioned kind of before the call that you also had a professional career after that, right?
Yeah, and then after I graduated from BYU, I'm also an Italian citizen, and so at that point, I ended up going to Europe, and I spent 10 years playing professionally there. I was there until just before the pandemic kind of broke loose.
Oh wow. Okay. So I'm guessing that this is going to make me sound like a really terrible BYU basketball historian because I 100% am a terrible BYU basketball historian. But I know Travis Hansen. You were after Travis. Did your careers ever cross over in Europe as well?
No, no,
Okay,
no, because by the time I got started, he was already done, and
he was done.
so yeah, Travis was the BYU, 02, 03, 03. No, 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 01, 02, 02, 03. And I was at BYU, and then he played professionally, and then I think he stopped. He got drafted by the Hawks in
Yep.
'03, and then I think his last year playing was '09.
Okay, got it. So you just missed each other then
Yeah,
overseas. That is okay. Um, got it. Well, that's and so 10 years, all in Europe.
yeah, yeah. I played. There was about half of a season that I played in Brazil for the team that I grew up playing for. Um, but yeah, the bulk of my career was in Italy.
Okay. Well, how about this? Should I call you Jonathan or JT? Which do you prefer?
JT is fine.
All right. Well, how about this, JT? We're going to go to a quick break, hear from my fantastic sponsor, Ruvi. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the differences between basketball in South America versus Europe versus the US,
That'll be
and
great.
being able to play in all three of those. And then also just give you some chance to encourage, some of these young guys. Like I think about, Dean down at Timview and
Yeah,
guys like Cody and so just give you a chance to encourage them with some of the lessons that you've learned, not just through your playing career, but also some lessons maybe that your mom passed down to you that you can share and drop a little wisdom on these young kids. So
love it. Let's do it.
awesome. Well, we will be right back after this word from our sponsor, Ruby.
How the heck are you supposed to eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? And as a mom, I think I figured it out. Ruby. Ruby is the only way. Open, pour, shake, drink. My kids love Ruby because it tastes so good. And When in your life are you gonna get this many fruits and vegetables in just one serving? Like I get to eat my McKee berry. Trust me on this one. Try it once and you will not regret it. Your kids won't even complain that they have to drink it. It's that good.
And you won't regret going to goruvi.com and using code ADAM15 to get 15% off your purchase. That's goruvi, GORUVI.com, and use code ADAM15 for 15% off your purchase. All right, we are back here on the Utah High School Hoops podcast. By the way, every time I say that, JT, I almost say we're back here with the People of Packaging podcast because I've done 243 episodes of that one and not nearly as many basketball.
Did I get it? Did I read it correctly that you've done like podcasts all over the world and stuff?
Yeah. I've had people on from every continent except for Antarctica. I've been able to interview countless, different people, people in politics, people.
Then give me your top 4 like most famous person that you had. I would say 5, but since I'll probably be on that list, I'll take myself out.
Yeah, you're at least number 5. Number 1, I'm supposed to be doing the interview here and not you, so I don't appreciate the. I'm just playing. So there'd be no order here, man. I'd have to think. 240 is a lot. Are you familiar with? There's a company called Dude Wipes. They make like
yeah.
Dude Wipes. So I got to have Sean Riley on. He's the creator of Dude Wipes. He's been on Shark Tank and all that stuff. That was super fun. Let's see here. I had the coach Danny Sprinkle on from Utah State was on this podcast recently, and that was really great. There's a professor. This one is a little bit more interesting. There's a professor from CU Boulder who studies climate change and has a pretty big following in sort of the sustainability of the climate world. His name's Roger Pielke Jr. And that was a really incredible interview. My guy from Canada, Jake Carls. He runs a company, him and his family, called Midday Squares. Dude, these guys, you've probably never heard of them in the US, but they make a really healthy like chocolate thing. So they got
I want to try Ruvi now.
Yeah, you got to try Go Ruvi. So my guy though, Jake, they're out of Ottawa, Canada. They got sued by Hershey's. This is a true story. They got sued by Hershey's because of their packaging. So they changed it.
Oh.
And then they took the money they were going to spend on their lawyers to fight it and made a rap diss track against Hershey's and put it on YouTube that got like tens of millions of views.
That's awesome.
So they got to come on and tell that story. Yeah, I don't know, man. I've met with like when I was with the UN, I met with the governor of New Mexico, who sang the praises of Governor Cox, which was really neat. Didn't need to. She's like, I'm a Democrat. He's a Republican, but I just really enjoy working with him in Utah. So shout out to Governor Cox there. Yeah, I don't know. I've just been able to meet some really, really incredible people. So thanks. And then a bunch of people who nobody knows about, but there's a guy in India runs a company called Plastics for Change where they pay fair trade to people who are collecting plastic trash in India. They give them fair trade wages. They have an app so they can make a living. And then he sells the recycled plastic, fair trade plastic, to companies like Unilever and Procter and Gamble. So these world changers people haven't really heard of that I get to meet with and hang out with. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So thanks for the question. And I got to give a shout out to my sister. My sister was on the podcast. She's the like you, the females in my family are cooler than me. So my sister is actually the NBA draft analyst for Yahoo Sports. So she came on and broke down a bunch of kids who came to Utah for the Fight for the Fight tournament.
Nice.
So yeah, it's been pretty fun.
Have you ever? What about obviously Utah hoops? How many people have you had from the state of Utah about basketball wise?
Oh man, I just started this thing like 5 months ago, so it's pretty new. Let's see. So I had like Coach Sprinkle, I had yourself, Everett Gray from Salt Lake Rebels played
I
out at
know
UL.
Ev.
Yeah, so Ev was just on. Hector Marquez, who runs Prep Hoops.
I know Hector really well.
Um, so he was on. I had Sanyon. I had Coach Casey Stanley from LCA. Coach Mitch Argyle from Logan. I'm gonna end up forgetting somebody. Tim Drisdom came on. Um, AJ Jackson, who runs the Instagram account, has been a
Yeah.
couple. I definitely forgot some. Oh, APA West Valley. I got to go up there and have a conversation with them, and got some records there. JJ Mandaquit and Junior
He
County.
is, my goodness, that boy is the truth.
He's so good. So I went up to the Utah Prep team, their players team house, and had
Yep.
Coach LJ on and JJ and Junior County. So yeah, man, it's been there's a lot of basketball here for sure, and a lot more people like yourself who I'm just excited to talk to and get to know a little bit more. So it's my turn. We came back from the break, and I got trapped all of a sudden out of timeout. I had planned
I'm
for
in, I'm in,
man to man, and you
I'm
came
in
in full court
sales.
press.
I'm in sales. I'm in business. So it's all about flip the script. You know what I mean?
We can talk
So,
about that too. I'm a senior vice president of sales for a company in Minnesota, so that's what I do full
oh,
time.
okay. Well, we're going to have to talk about offline then. I love it.
True story. It's true story. Actually, give a shout out to my guy. My Serve Other shirt here is from my guy Dale Dupree, who runs the Sales Rebellion, and he's a
Nice.
great dude. All right, but it's my turn to flip the script back onto you.
Okay.
So I kind of said before the break and before the full court press that that you gave me that I wanted to ask you some questions about the differences in playing. You know, not just the the wider key and the the no goaltending and stuff like that. Like the
Right.
rules obviously play a little bit into it, but just the culture around basketball that you've been able to experience between Brazil and Europe and the US, it all changed, I think, with the 1992 Dream Team. I think that they really obviously basketball was still big before then. I'm not saying that it just like showed up out of nowhere, but it seems like since then that and since professionals could start to play in the Olympics, that basketball has truly become a global game. I mean, I've set up a box in a orphanage in India because kids wanted to play like Kobe. I'm like,
Right.
how do you? So it seems like the game has obviously really expanded. You've been able to play at the highest levels in all three of these places. So maybe just talk a little bit about what are some of the differences between the three areas you've been able to play in.
Yeah. I will say this basketball in the US is an entertainment, it's not a sport. And I think you have to understand that. And, you know, as you go from the NBA and even college, it's not so much about, hey, like let's talk about the skills and the fundamentals. The way basketball is and the NBA and college, it's literally 100% entertainment. I mean, I was looking at a couple of BYU tickets for next week's home game because I have some people in town I have to host, but $80 is the cheapest BYU ticket that I found. And with $80, I may be able to, depending if I time it right, I may be able to get lower bowl seats for a Jazz game.
Yeah, right.
And it's a business, and that's the biggest difference to me. Now, not saying that in Brazil it's not a business, in Europe is not a business. It is, but in those places, you are catering towards, hey, the goal of this game is to get a winner to go towards a championship. I feel like the goal in the U.S. is to entertain fans.
Mm.
And then not only that, I mean, when you get to the actual game, the ball is different. It's a different weight, size, texture, feel, material. The game itself, the way it's played, from a very early age and young age in outside of the US, the focus on fundamentals is always there. And so, up until I was probably 13 years old, there was no distinction between a point guard and a five man because
Right.
everybody plays as if they are a guard, so you can develop skills. You also develop players playing on the post. And so, and that's true in Brazil and South America as it is in Europe. I coach a basketball team. I coach a fifth grade basketball team. We're probably one of the top 5 teams in the state.
Okay.
And what I can tell you is the emphasis that I put on making sure that my kids have the fundamentals right, and we play sharing the ball, and there's no, I mean, it's my son's team, but there's no such thing as, hey, give the ball to him and get out of the way. It's playing the right way. And I see so many other teams that we play against, and even teams that are better than us, I will say it. Um, it's just a one-man show or a two-man show. And it's, when Kobe used to say a lot about, hey, this is about the fundamentals, this is about, you have to teach the game the right way. That's why there's a ton of Europeans now, and arguably the best players in the NBA are not Americans.
Yeah.
It's because of the way, the system, the upbringings are now. Obviously, if you get the 12 best players in the US and then you go and compete with other countries, I mean, there's a sizable difference, but a lot of it has to do with the amount of time they're spending with trainers, their physicality, the way that their natural athletic ability reflects. Um, and that leads to a lot of, the things like you mentioned, the dream team, the redeem team. And, I'm very excited for this year's Olympics, for the remember team. Right. And, but I think one of the key things is, the game has now become universal. And so, I don't know if you remember, but they used to be the trap, the trapezoid. It used to be the
Yeah.
paint, and there's a big difference. And shot clock, it was a 30-second shot clock and not 24. NBA is 12 minutes a quarter. Every other place is 10 minutes a quarter. I think college basketball, probably next biggest change in college basketball might be going to a quarter type of game. It's already in the women's game, and so the game has differences. I'll probably say a big one is physicality, right? The way that you are allowed to contact and hand check and bump people in the FIBA game it's nothing like that in the NBA, because again, you're catering to the fans, and so
Yeah. No one wants to watch
he
that.
hand check and be able to let players go, and you know reminded me a lot of how Luka scored 70 points the other game, and somebody put it on Twitter, TikTok, or Instagram, and it was well, no wonder he scored 70 points, and it was just him going and just doing the spin and doing the layup, and nobody's guarding him.
Yeah.
And which is why Luka himself will say, yeah, it is much easier to score in the NBA than it is to score in Europe. And
Well, the thing about Luca too, in that draft, I remember because it was like I think it was like DeAndre Jordan and then Marvin Bagley and then Luca.
DeAndre Ayton,
DeAndre Ayton. Who did I say? DeAndre Jordan? Yeah,
Jordan.
not DeAndre Jordan. That was a long time before. DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, and then Luca. And I could not for the life of me figure it out. I was like, here, this kid is like 16 playing at the arguably the best league outside of the
The
United
NBA,
States,
yeah,
outside of the NBA. I mean, and he's 16 years old, and he is, he what at 17 didn't he win like MVP of the Final Four in the Spanish league? Like this dude is
and of the Euro League, yeah,
and of the league. Yeah, and I'm like, why is he not? Why are we not talking about him like we did LeBron? Now like we're talking about Victor Wembanyama, where it's like
yeah.
he should be the absolute clear cut. Nobody should have any questions. He's the number one pick, and I've been wrong before. I once said that Josh Jackson will have a career and no one will remember Jason Tatum. I was totally wrong about that, completely wrong. So I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, but also when I'm right, I like to at least kind of gloat
Yeah.
about it. But you're absolutely right, man. I mean, the NBA is, and now even college basketball and even high school basketball. If you get up to watch Leighton Christian Academy, they've got There's a kid up there from I think he's from Poland. There's another kid from a couple kids from Serbia.
There are some
Um,
Africans there too.
yeah, they've got some kids from Africa, and and you just start looking around. It's like, hey, y'all, listen, you can't just focus on your mixtape and like your highlights. Like you have to be
Yeah.
fundamentally sound in America now. I think that that's actually the thing that I really appreciate about the European game is, and in this case the South American game, is that they play positionless basketball. I talk about Jokic all the time because I love him dearly, and he grew up playing point guard or just guard. He just had to learn, he just had to be a guard. So let me ask you this question, because I find that this would be actually really interesting. Because you said, like, if you put the 12 best players from the United States together, but what if Europe functioned more like the United States? So what if we had an EU, the top 12 players in the EU, in the, we'll call it the Olympics, so though it
Yeah.
wouldn't be in this case, versus the top 12 players in the US. And I don't know if you could you throw South America into the mix on this? Like
Just
if
in
you
the
had like
rest of the world.
well, because I'm thinking like you could have Africa. I think you could put together a really compelling team from
Yeah.
Africa, from if we said North America and you include Canada in there, there's some ball SGA and Jamal Murray
Right.
killing it right now. I just think it would be a really compelling game, and I suspect I'd probably bet on Europe to win that game.
I mean, it's interesting. You go back to, the Soviet Union, and before there was a break, Jokic and Luka would be playing together.
Right?
And so when you think about, you think about Luka, you think about the Bogdanovics, you think about Giannis, you think about Jokic, and then you think about, Dario Saric, and then you think of,
Şengün from he's from Turkey, which is
yeah,
Turkey. So
yeah,
you Şengün, and he's nice.
yeah. You think about back in, a few years ago, the Gasol brothers.
Yep.
I mean, I wish that the All Star game would go to a European, Americans against the rest of the world. I wish
Yeah.
that was the way they did. I think the game would finally be competitive. And so,
And they have to care. I mean, I don't know. When I was growing
can
up,
you
like,
imagine? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if they lose, if the Americans lose? Oh my gosh. And so, and I think, obviously because of globalization, and you can see that a lot with the Last Dance, and also, you know, the dream team. But globalization, the way the game is global, you know what I mean? I think that's what pushing, after the fiasco of of the world championships, right? And you have the Tokyo Olympics, and they got it done, but then they go to the world championships, and it's just a debacle.
yeah, they got
And
what? The US got like fifth in that or something.
yeah, fifth or sixth place. And so it's, to me, I look at it, and I am very excited to see what happens this year at the Olympics with with Team USA, the way that they are positioning this, to be the remember team, with LeBron and Curry and Anthony Davis and Jason Tatum and maybe Jalen Brown, and like, it is going to be a phenomenal Olympic game,
Yep.
and very, very curious to see what that unravels, and you know
Well, oh, sorry.
no, I never played in Olympic Games. I was supposed to play in the 2012 ones. That was supposed to be my year with Brazil. My wife ended up having some complications during the birth of my oldest boy, and so I got to participate with the national team. I played everything except in the Olympics. I played South American Championships, Tournament of Americas, Olympic qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers, World Championships. I just never got to play in the Olympics, and so it's the one thing that I wish I could have done in my career, even more so than playing in the NBA. I think playing the NBA would have been cool. Don't get me wrong, obviously financially, but I wish I had the chance to play in the Olympics. That would have been pretty neat.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I got a couple last things here, and we'll kind of wrap it up. Because number one, I think I recall that you recently gained your U.S. citizenship. Is that correct?
Yeah, almost a year ago, I became a U.S. citizen. That's right.
Well, congrats. That's awesome. I know that's that from what I've heard, that's a really difficult process and
Yeah,
something that should be celebrated. So congratulations on
thank
that.
you.
Um, and let's kind of end it with you've shared so much just incredible knowledge and information. I actually agree. I would much rather, not that I ever had the opportunity, I would have rather represented my country at the Olympic Games
Yeah,
than have played in the NBA. Though, unlike you, that was never an option. Let me be really clear.
yeah,
That was never an option for me. Um, but uh, but you've been dropping a whole bunch of really helpful information and knowledge. And so I'd like to kind of end it here. We've got a number of different high school players. It sounds like you coach a fifth grade team already. There's some junior high players who, if they consume long form content, at least they tell me they listen to my podcast. But I sometimes question who has the patience if you're under the age of 30 anymore to listen to a 36-minute interview.
yeah,
But I hope that they're out there. So I could clip out the end of this too and just share it as a clip. But I would really love for you to just share some information. You've traveled the world, you've played the game at the highest levels that anybody can imagine. I mean, outside of, like you said, the NBA and the Olympics, there's you played high school ball at a high level, you played college ball at a high level, you played professionally at a high level. So what are some pieces of advice that you would give to a kid who's coming up, either maybe it's your fifth
yeah.
grade team on up?
As you're asking that, I'm like, to me, hard work is the number one thing that you have to have. If there's somebody that's working harder than you, that's already a problem. But you and I probably, during our formative years, we probably listened to that song that says, this is 10% luck, 15% skill. Uh, you know,
Is that Fort Minor?
yeah, this is 10% luck,
Yeah,
20% skill, 15% power of will, 5% pleasure, and 50% pain.
yeah,
I think there's a lot of things that you learn when you struggle, right? I in true honesty, I've accomplished a lot in my basketball, in my career, in my life so far. And it's all most of it has been because of hard work. Most of it has been because of the game of basketball. My mom was a coach, but I had to get good grades because of the way that she handled our team to be able to play. And then, for me to be able to come to the US, I had to learn English, which is my third language. And then to be able to come to the US, I had to be good at school, but also I had to be good at basketball. And then to be able to have the ability to go to a Judge Memorial or to a Bishop Gorman, I had to be an outstanding student, but also an outstanding basketball player. I was able to accomplish that because I worked so hard. And then to go to college, and then not only that, but to have the college career that I did. I left BYU. You can't really read right there, but as I left BYU, I was the winningest player in program history. I was the all-time three-point leader. I had broken multiple individual records. I finished my career as the first player to play in four consecutive NCAA tournaments. And so there's a lot of things that I accomplished, and then I went on to play professionally, and I also play for my national team. And so it does take a little bit of luck of things going your way, but I am a firm believer that luck is nothing except preparation meets opportunity, right? You
yep,
have to be able to be ready. You have to be prepared so that when opportunity comes, you have a few breaks that go your way, right? Um, and to me, the best advice I can give somebody is just if you're not the hardest worker in a gym, then unless you have a rich dad, things are probably not going to work out for you. And I think that if and I tell that to the boys that I coach, I said, hey, some of you You understand now. You're 10, 11 years old. You understand, hey, this guy has money. This guy doesn't have money. Family is well off, have a great house, that sort of thing. Dad has a certain type of job. You can tell if you have, if financially you have a good life or not. But regardless, I feel like sports is the great equalizer
Yep.
because when you are on a court, it doesn't matter if your dad has money or not. If you can't hoop and you can't shoot and you can't guard, it's going to get exposed. And so my way of having a great life was through basketball. Now that I've retired and I'm a businessman, basketball was the main thing that gave me the opportunities because of the degree that I have, the network that I created, the personality that I have, people knowing me. And so it's just one of those things that sports can be a great tool for you. And basketball is the greatest game ever invented. It can be, and he got game. Jake Shuttlesworth, Jesus's dad, says something that stuck with me, and he says, "Basketball is a tool. Use it. Don't let it use you." And
Mm.
to me, I have maximized every ounce of the game of basketball to get everything that I have in my life, and I hope that everybody can do the same because it is a game that take a lot from you, but it can give a lot of it back too.
I love it so much. I could have a whole second segment on everything you just said because I'm just like in my head I'm like, man, this is what I've been preaching this to anybody who I'm actually a preacher as well. Like I'm an ordained pastor. So I don't
Love it.
literally preach that at
Love
church.
it.
But like this idea that you're talking about, that I've told the story in the podcast before, but I played pickup ball where I'm like, that guy's worth $40 million. I know he just sold his ad agency. That person is almost homeless. That person is also, struggling in life, and we're at the local YMCA. But on in between the lines, none of it mattered. It was just like, can you play? And we're teammates, and we're together. And it brings us together, and now I know their stories, and now I could try to help them out, and now what I'm saying. So I love it, JT. I hope, like I said, I hope that some of these kids got to the end here, and don't worry, kids, I'll clip some of these great quotes out and put them on Instagram just for you. But please take some time and consume long form content because it will do your brain a tremendous amount of work. Watch full games, take notes, listen to long form content. There's my advice. JT, I'm going to end when I end the interview though, please don't hang up because it's got to like upload on your side. I forgot to say that before we jumped on, but I really appreciate you coming on, being on the show, dropping so much wisdom, and maybe we'll fly down to Sao Paulo. We'll watch the first NFL game next year. Is that what we're going to do?
I mean, did you already get your ticket? Because I booked mine. So
Okay, all right, all right. I'm
hopefully
on.
we're sitting together. So
I appreciate it, JT. Thank you.
yeah. Thanks for having me, Adam. I appreciate you. Thanks.
Yep.